Hello and welcome back to the She is Courageous podcast. This week is one of our guest episodes, and I am delighted to be joined by the beautiful, and I'm going to say it, statement glasses wearing. If you're watching on YouTube, you will see what I mean. Claire Causton, aka the Menopause Stylist. Now, Claire, I've obviously got your bio. We've introduced the episode before we've even started talking. But what I would love for you to do is share with the listeners your story. So, the way that I always ask guests to share their story is to kind of tell us about you, tell us who you are now, and then go back and tell us a bit about who you were and the journey to here. Because I know there's been a journey. You are in my world. You're one of my She is Courageous Collective members. So I know how much you work on you. I know that there's been a lot and you have absolutely faced into courage. So would you share your story with our listeners, please?
Yeah, of course. And I'm sure some of them might think some of the things are slightly reckless rather than courageous, but I'll let you guys be the judge of that. Um, so I'm about to turn 50 next year, which when you get to that point can be a little bit of a shocking moment. So this is interesting to kind of reflect back on how I got here. It sounds like the beginning of a movie, doesn't it? A
I love
flashback.
that. And you are the star, Claire, just so we're
Yeah.
clear.
So I had always wanted to work for myself. I've always been an awful employee. I always think I can do everything better than everybody else. I can't. I just think I can, which means that I really tend to piss off my bosses. So after a while, I think I got to about the age of 30 where I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was the commutes. I was working for a charity at the time. I was head of fundraising for a cancer charity.
Wow.
Um, Doing a lot of commuting from where I live into London. It was like 4 hours or more a day. It was too much. And
Yeah.
small charity politics was a lot. And I just decided this isn't the life for me. I'm going to quit my job.
Just
So
like that. We'll come back to
just
that,
like
I
that.
think. Keep telling us the story.
So I quit my job, split up with my boyfriend, got a flat on my own, got myself a tattoo, and did some training as an image consultant. Well, actually, a bit before that, I thought, right, well, I obviously need to work. I need to earn some money. I want to work for myself. What do I do? It's got to be something that I enjoy. I was the person that my friends would come to at uni for getting ready for nights out, which was almost every single night. So I had a lot of practice. So it was, hair, makeup, outfits, all of that kind of stuff. Not that I was ever great at makeup. We didn't really wear a lot of makeup back then. Um, and I thought, and I loved shopping, and I just thought, is there a way? Is there a way to make money taking people shopping? And it turned out there was. So I did some formal training. I found the best trainer that I could. She was the chair of the Federation of Image Professionals International, and I later on became the director of communications for that organisation as well for a short
Wow.
period of time. It was in COVID. Yeah, a lot was going on, so I wasn't able to complete that, but that term. But it was fascinating to be able to do that
Mm.
and contribute to the industry in that way. Um, and then, so we had COVID, and then shortly after COVID, I started feeling not really myself and really low energy, started to feel a bit anxious, getting really down, which had not ever been me at all. I'd never really suffered with
Mm.
anxiety or depression or mood swings or PMT or anything like that. And even when I had my daughter, I didn't have any baby blues or anything like that afterwards. So, it was a pretty easy birth as well. So I was quite lucky. And then came menopause, and wow.
I love that
A
you're
lot's
saying it with a
going on.
smile on your face right now, but it wasn't with a smile on your face when along came menopause, was it?
No, no, it's been absolute hell, to be honest. It's been brutal. Um, I'm a bit of an introvert anyway, and adding the social anxiety, depression, loss of energy, fluctuating mood swings, just complete loss of sense of who I am, not knowing who I am anymore, second guessing myself. Imposter syndrome, I'd never experienced that before. It was crippling. All of it was crippling, to the point where I had retainer clients. I had to lose all of those. About 18 retainer clients I had to say goodbye to, so I couldn't keep up with the work. A membership that I decided to shut down at the time, and I was ready to just stop and close down completely. Managed to get some HRT, and that changed my life massively.
Yeah.
And it was, and I just thought, how did I get to 45, 46 and not know that this was coming? How did I, how? And I'm not the
Women
only one.
around the country will be resonating right now with what you've just said.
And you feel like, is it me? How much should I have been more? Should I have done something about making, educating myself about this? All I knew was hot flushes. You might lose your self-confidence a little bit, and that's only because of a TV program Trini and Susanna did like 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Yes.
probably even now.
God, I'd forgotten about that. Right.
Yeah, well, they did one specifically for women in menopause. They did a season of that. And loss of libido. That was it. That was all I knew. I don't know about the itchy ears, the dry eyes, the burning feet, the hair loss. Okay, you know a bit about the middle age spread, but it doesn't happen the way you think it's going to happen. The loss of energy, the loss of mental function. So I had almost all the physical symptoms apart from hot flashes, believe it or not. Pretty much everything
Wow.
other than that. But I used to get cold flashes. So in the middle of the night, I would wake up as if I had been dunked in a bath of ice, and my
Wow.
whole body would be shaking. It was like it was painful, like really painful, and would take quite a while to go away. And that could happen 2 or 3 times a night. It was awful. And the way I realised that I was fully actually in perimenopause was that it was the Queen's Jubilee, and I'd had every morning that week. I say morning because it was that period of time just before you wake up. Absolute horrific night terrors every single morning for 7 days.
Gosh.
The kind that are really traumatic and stay with you. And I mentioned it to my mum, and she said, "Well, that's how my menopause started as well." And I was like,
And
"I've been
this was
saying it."
how many, like, how far in was this, roughly?
When was the Jubilee? I can't remember where the Jubilee was. I reckon I'd been saying, "Oh, I think I'm menopausal," for about 6 months before
Wow.
that happened, maybe a bit longer. And my tolerance to alcohol disappeared overnight. I mean, one glass of wine and I had a raging headache and I felt awful immediately. Thankfully, HRT's fixed that issue.
There she is. That's my girl.
um, yeah, so HRT was amazing, and it got me to the point where I realised I looked in the mirror and I really had lost who I was, like mentally. And then
Right.
I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognise the woman that was in front of me. I'd gained weight, yes, but I'd never really had an issue with gaining weight. In my mind, our bodies change from birth and they're always changing. I never
Mhm.
expect my body to stay the same. And so I just buy, a bigger size, and that's fine. It doesn't have I'm not emotionally connected to the size on the label. But what had also happened is that my shape had changed. Like
Yeah.
I'd gained a lot of weight on the tummy, right around the middle, around my waist, and I hadn't realised that. All I realised was putting clothes on, and nothing looked right. Everything looked frumpy and weird and lumpy and wrong. And because I was only just at the beginning of my HRT journey, I hadn't started the testosterone, which was the thing that really got my brain working again. And I would say it probably took me about 3 months, maybe longer, to
Wow.
really work out what was going on with my body. And I thought, oh my God, if it's taken me this long, and I had to say to myself, okay, what would you say to a client? Look at your body as if you're a client, a figure that you've never dressed before. What would you be saying? Look at it objectively, and what would you be saying to a client? It's like, your body shape is changed. It's completely different. The way
Right.
you've been wearing your clothes needs to change. It's not going to work anymore. And it took me that long to work that out. And I thought, oh my God, we're going through all of these physical symptoms. We're going through all of these mental symptoms. So much of a woman's confidence is tied up in how she feels about herself when she looks in the mirror. And I don't think that's a vanity thing. I think that it is really a part of our identity and who we are. It's how we
Mhm.
communicate to other
Yeah.
people, our values and a bit about our personality and what we believe in and what we stand for. And I thought, Jesus, God, women are going through all this, and then they get to look in the mirror and see it actually like
Yeah.
living out. And it's traumatic, it's horrible, and you don't know
Well,
what
as
to do
someone that's
and
heading for
what's
50 next
wrong.
year, everything you are describing right now completely resonates. Completely resonates.
Yeah, and you don't, how do you know what to do about it? It took me 3 months, and I've been doing it for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
How do you know what to do about it? You literally, you don't. And so it was at that point where I was on the cusp of, do I just shut down completely? Where I decided, okay, what if, and I'd been toying with it for a few months. What if I was the menopause stylist? What if I actually could speak directly to women who were feeling this? And not just in that, there's a lot of meno washing going around, which really I find very uncomfortable. And I genuinely have rebranded because, and you'll see this in my social media, because I want to speak directly to those women. I want them to know that there's someone there that actually really genuinely understands what they're going through. And it's not just your body shape's changed, it's all the stuff that's going on in your head, the loss of identity, the inability to make a decision about basic stuff, the overwhelm on just what to cook for dinner, if that's your role in the house, and then trying to decide what to wear and finding something that fits your body that's changed and you don't even know what's happened to it. It's too much. So my whole kind of ethos is to give women really simple, easy tools and small tweaks on how they can completely transform how they feel about their body when they're looking in the mirror, so they can get dressed really easily with zero effort and always look put together, even if they're having a really, really bad day, which can happen a lot in menopause.
Wow. And so how long have you been the menopause stylist? When did this all kind of, because it was a big shift. We'll come back to kind of the process of going through that. But how long have you
Mm.
now been doing
See, I have absolutely no concept of time anymore as well, which is a
that? You
really
know
weird
what?
thing.
I say that I'm exactly the same. I met someone recently who was like, it was a gentleman and really nice guy, but he was like, oh, that is my superpower. He was like, you could name anything. Like, if you name a song, I can tell you the year, the month. And I was like, I need to carry you in my pocket, or I've got no concept of time
I
whatsoever.
don't even know
Do you
what
know what?
year stuff happened. Like, it's really, I
Bless
was like,
you.
oh, it's a COVID thing. It's not a COVID thing.
Yeah, we went through a phase, didn't we, where we talked about pre-COVID and post-COVID, but COVID
Yeah.
was 5 years ago, and that in
Mm,
itself is insane. Let's not even do that
mm,
whole like how fast everything is going. Claire, everything you just described, I mean, I really resonate. I'm 50 next year too. And as you just talked about I haven't had every symptom. I've had the hot flushes,
mm,
and I've had some symptoms, but I think I'm coming off relatively lightly in my
mm.
menopause journey, perimenopause,
Which is
whatever the hell
good.
it is. Yeah. But I absolutely resonate with what you described there about looking in the mirror. My body's changed. The things that I used to wear and feel really good, and I don't feel I had. I've definitely gone through those phases, looking in the wardrobe, just wanted to cry, because not because I don't have lovely clothes in the wardrobe, but I don't feel good in any of them. I've really had
Yeah.
to make some shit. So the world needs the menopause stylist. That's what I'm going to just call out right now. So let's just go back to a couple of parts there, because this is the She is Courageous podcast, right?
Hmm.
And you just run out, like you said, I don't know if it's courageous, or forgive me, I didn't actually write down the word you said, or reckless. I think you said
Reckless.
reckless. And you know what? I think sometimes we need to we need to give recklessness a go in order to be courageous and do the things we really want to do. Now, you've obviously made two major pivots in your career. So from kind of, you did say, I always wanted to run my own business, but, just kind of got to a stage of, this is not working for me. I'm not happy. It's not giving me what I want. I love that you were like, I was 30, I split with my boyfriend, I got a tattoo, I changed my job. I love a bit of, full on
Yeah, it
transformation.
wasn't dramatic at all. Yeah.
I guess if you think back to making that shift and then making the shift you've made in terms of rebranding into the menopause stylist, what the question I'd love to ask you is, when you think now to both of those big transitions in life,
Mm.
do you think there's a common theme there for you as a person? Like, it is really courageous to do what you do. You say reckless. Have you always had a reckless streak? Have you always had a courageous streak? Like, what what drives you to be courageous enough to do those things?
I think um, So in my corporate career, I never really stuck at any job for longer than 3 years. That was a long time for me to stick at anything.
Okay.
I think I get bored easily. And I think that I've definitely always had a bit of that sort of risk taking element to my personality. When I was 18, I went and I told my mum and dad I want to go and live in America for a year.
Right.
And I was an au pair. And the family I lived with had 6-month-old triplets and a 2.5-year-old. They were
Wow.
sole charge. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's courageous, reckless, or crazy.
Yeah. All of the above.
Right. And what
Yeah.
did you learn about yourself though, doing something like that at like
I
18
can
years of
rise
age?
to the challenge is what I've
Yeah.
I've learned is that things feel scary, but sometimes you've just got to shut your eyes and make the leap anyway, because if you're not happy where you are, you've got to change something. Things aren't going to change on their own. Nothing will change unless you change it. So I was at that, like I said, I was with the business, I was at that point of I'm either going to shut down or I'm going to make a big change.
Yeah.
And weirdly, with all of the other stuff that I've done in my life, and I've got a bit of an adventurous side. I've travelled quite a bit around the world solo and done a lot of kind of adventurous things, whitewater rafting, bungee jumping, stuff you do in your 20s. Um, but actually, the scariest thing, even scarier than going to live in the States on my own for a year and live with a family I'd never met, and because there was no FaceTime, there was no text messages, there was
Yeah.
barely
No.
email, that back then it was barely email. I think we were writing letters to each other for
Do you
like,
know what? I mean, given that I'm the same age as you, I was talking to someone the other day about how I remember faxing, okay,
hmm
in my corporate world. So I used to
yep,
work for a very well-known coffee brand that's
right,
global, and we faxed and we were just entering into email. I remember when the internet, not when, well, obviously it was invented the year round about our birth year, but actually, wires across the lounge floor, getting your AOL disc from the supermarket, etc., etc. These kids today, they don't know they're born, do they?
they
Anyway,
don't.
let's not go down that route. But sorry, I was thinking, I absolutely recall that, and you're right. It took a whole other level of courage to do that in our day, and I don't care how old I sound doing that. You were about to say, I think, though, that as courageous as all that was, as brave as that may have been, actually, and it was, sorry, I feel like maybe I stepped in too soon. Were you about to lead into it? It was scarier to do what you've done most recently in terms of the
Yeah,
rebrand and the shift.
totally. I think because I was younger, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have all this, perfect things to aspire to. Everything was messy and you just did it and you made it work. I think that made a big difference. Also, I was younger, you've got more energy, you're fearless when you're that age. You don't, and you think I've got time to put things right. And then as you get a bit older, you're thinking, shit.
Well,
Now I've got to get it right.
right. And I think at our time of life, I don't know about you, but I find myself almost in this. I just said at our time of life. I mean, Christ, we're not even 50. What am I talking about? But in this era that we're in, I
Yes.
find myself almost with like two trains of thought going on. So, I mean, you talked about, nothing changes if you don't do something about it. And I love that. There's a brilliant quote. It's as simple as nothing changes if nothing changes. And
Yeah.
I, like you, I'm a big believer that the only person that can change a situation is me, is ourselves, right? But, and so I think we get to this stage in our lives where we're done with the messing around with it. We're like, you know what? Nothing changes if nothing changes. I'm going to do something about it. Or we don't. But equally, in our younger years, we don't know what we don't know. We haven't got years of, knockbacks and challenges and embarrassment and fear, etc., etc. So you've got like this inner conflict, haven't you, when you're in your, and I
Mm.
think a lot of women in their 40s talk about this. They've got this, you know, less F's given these days,
Yeah.
but equally, we're carrying much more great experience, but also difficult experiences. And as we know, this is also always about mindset. That's what I stand for. And that's the bit where the brain is going, hang on a second, we've been here. And this is like, how did you? I can absolutely see and understand what drove you to want to make this shift and change, your own lived experience. That's one thing, but actually making the shift and change. What were the biggest challenges you faced and had to come through to rebrand, to come out the other side as the menopause stylist?
I kind of did it by stealth, really. I didn't. So I'd been thinking about it for a few months. And I had a conversation with someone, and they said, you need to claim your crown. You need to kind of, I'd never understood how you niche. I'd never understood how to niche. And the second that I heard that phrase, claim your crown, I was like, I'm doing
I
it.
love
This is
that.
my, I know exactly where my audience is. I know how to speak to them. I know what they need. I know I speak their language. I completely get it. That's it. And that was the minute. That was the pivotal moment that it happened. And everything else after that, the rebrand, all happened very slowly, little bit by little bit by little bit. And it's probably only really, I would say, the last 4 or 5 months I've really been putting proper energy into it. Like I was there, but I still wasn't fully there. My menopause symptoms still had a bit of a grip on me.
Of
And
course.
I'd been through mentally, it'd been quite a traumatic time. So I feel like I had a lot of mental resetting to do, still a huge amount of imposter syndrome to kind of talk myself out of and work my way through, and confidence issues and all of that, which, as I said, I'd never had before these menopause symptoms here. And
Yeah.
and to think that there are women living with this every day is really, like, for their whole lives, who feel that sense of lack of confidence and
Yeah.
imposter syndrome all their lives. And I just think, God, how are you managed? Like, there are women out there who are achieving phenomenal things, going through this and having experienced those feelings for much longer as well. It's incredible.
And it's really interesting hearing you say that. And I know you've said this to me before, Claire, that, you've not experienced those feelings of imposter syndrome before. That's not something that was ever really a worry or a concern. You didn't have this big self-doubt, negative mindset
No.
challenge through your 20s and 30s. It came through menopause. It came through these massive
Yeah.
changes you went through. And I love, and I really appreciate your appreciation for others. And I think, there will be people listening to this that, you may not be hitting menopause yet. Now, younger ladies, if you're listening to this right now, it's coming, okay? And no
It is.
one tells us really. I mean, we've got more knowledge these days than we've ever had, but we don't really get prepared for it. And if you haven't experienced feelings of self-doubt and things, then actually, I guess this is our call out to you, do whatever you need to do now to start building your little bank of self-confidence ready. And everybody's experience is different, okay?
Yeah.
But I think we almost normalize things, right? So one of the biggest challenges I face as a mindset coach is I work with people in all ages. I'm going to come back to your niche piece because I love Claim Your Crown, by the way. But I work with people of all ages, and I do work with younger women who are experiencing imposter syndrome, and we're able to give them the tools to navigate that sooner. And again, I think it's this piece, there's almost this inner conflict, because on the one hand, you're quite rightly saying, God, how are people dealing with that even younger? Like I've managed to get through 20 years without it now. But I think sometimes that can make that harder to face into. This is brand new for you. There's enough being thrown at you. And on top of that, you're experiencing these feelings of doubt that you've never had before.
That's
But
true.
yeah, I mean, I think, look, I say this all the time. There's no one path that we all follow. There are multiple paths, and most of us are jumping in and around all of them and experiencing a bit of this, that, and the other, at various times for us. I love the claim your crown piece, and I think you are absolutely doing that. And I guess I just want to kind of pull that out because I speak to a lot of people that really struggle with the niche piece, and I'm one of them. I've resisted niching forever. And I think the best way to describe it, and why I love Claim Your Crown so much, is because Claim Your Crown is about saying, look, be you, do what you want to do. Just be really clear about what that is and then stand
Mm.
for it and own it. And I
Yeah.
think the bit with niching that gets really confused is people seem to tell you you have to be really clear, really specific. You have to niche, you have to work with one type of person. And actually, I have to say, for me, I don't have a niche category. I'm my niche because the
Yeah.
way I do things is differently, and
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
where I claim my crown. So I
Yeah.
think I love that. And God, claim your crown. Just hold on to your crown. Just keep claiming it. What you're at the early stages of this new transition, and you've recognized that actually this transition, not just the transition in terms of the rebrand for the business, but the journey you've been on over the last couple of years with menopause has brought new feelings, new self-doubt, and I know you are actively working on yourself. It's one of the reasons you joined the She Is Courageous Collective. That's what we
Yeah.
do. What has been, I guess, the biggest light bulb for you over the last couple of years about you?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard question. Um, maybe that maybe that I am enough, maybe that I am okay just as I am, but I still don't fully believe that. But the fact that that might be the case is probably the biggest light bulb. That might be the case.
I'll take that. And look, we're all works in progress all the time, okay? And
Yeah.
so we can feel great one day and tomorrow can bring something altogether differently. And I guess let's just talk about it. So you used that phrase, imposter syndrome, something you hadn't experienced before. And so how did that start showing up for you? And how did you deal with it?
I mean, it was just like my menopause symptoms. It came hard and it came fast. I mean, I'd be shopping for a client online, something that I would have found so easy a few months before, and everything I picked out, I was second guessing. Oh, is that right though? But is that right? That just seems all the same stuff that I've selected for another client. It wasn't, it was completely different. But literally every piece that I was selecting, I was second guessing. And every time I was with a client, say I was doing a colour consultation, for example, afterwards I would be questioning, oh, was that right though? Because she said this, and then that one didn't look quite, was that right? And then I'm constantly checking in with the client afterwards. Are you okay? Are you happy with your colours? Does everything feel right? How are you getting on with it? And I would never, ever, I was 100% confident and certain with everything that I did before, which maybe, isn't necessarily, completely the right way to feel about things either. But
Hmm,
I think
interesting.
I had confidence enough in what I was doing that my clients felt secure. And I feel like I went through, maybe it's still there a bit, through a phase of maybe some of that self-doubt may have come across to my clients, which makes me feel really sad because I do actually know what I'm doing and I am actually really good at what I'm doing and what I do. But that was there in the back of my head, even though it's not real and it's not true, and I know it isn't, but it gets a grip on you somehow.
It really, and it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? The
Yeah,
more that we are questioning ourselves,
yeah.
and I think, look, I'm fairly sure, and I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you, but I'm going to take a fairly good punt that not one of your clients had any concerns about the work you were delivering. So much of it, forgive me, is in our heads, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
it does become a self-fulfilling in that the more that we question ourselves, the less likely we are to deliver, perform, whatever the right words are, at the level we're capable of. It's like we
yeah,
hold a little bit back,
definitely.
and then we're telling ourselves, and clearly I think I'm holding a little bit back, and therefore my clients are clearly thinking they're not getting the right. They're not saying that at all because they're still getting a great experience, but it just swishes and swirls and
Yeah,
it snowballs. It absolutely snowballs in our mind.
it does, and that's why I said about having a bit of a mental reset from how I was feeling. Because for me, definitely the mental symptoms of menopause have been far, far worse than the physical symptoms.
Yeah.
Although I've had like 99 out of 100 of the physical symptoms, I could tolerate them, but the mental symptoms, because that's my work is, it's how there's a lot of kind of psychology involved as well as technical knowledge
Mm,
involved
mm.
in what I do as well. And so if my brain's not working properly, I just can't do my job. And so with that self-doubt in your head all the time, I've really been very aware that I've needed to actively work on, I don't know if I can ever switch it off now that it's there, but turn it down. And I
Yeah.
don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that it's there. Maybe it's keeping me a bit more kind of in check than that, in your 20s and 30s, complete confidence in everything you do, maybe slightly delusional. But
Nothing wrong with a little bit of Delulu.
so I feel like maybe I can work with it, but it's definitely something that I need to kind of keep on top of actively. Yeah.
And how do you, if you don't mind me asking, how do you dial it down? How do you keep on top of it?
Honestly, it's feedback from clients makes a massive difference because that instantly turns off any doubts that you had about the process you went through with that client. Um, but also just constantly reminding myself where I've come from and what I've achieved so far, and all the knowledge I've built up, and why am I questioning myself now when I didn't question myself a few years ago? Well, there's actually nothing's changed. I'm doing the same work. I have the same set of skills and knowledge. In fact, I have more than I had a few
Right.
years ago. So why would I be questioning myself? And it's just that kind of mental saying to yourself, no, no, you're fine. You know what you're doing. Just get on with it. Like
Yeah.
maybe you would to a friend.
Love that. I love that. And one of the things I always try and do through the podcast is give really practical tips. So hearing that really practical tip from you is really important because it is that. I mean, I love what you just said there. Actually, yes, there's looking at where you've come from and recognizing that, first of all, the clients are giving you good feedback. We got, we're so quick to look for the bad feedback that doesn't even come. So we'll start
Yeah.
creating it for ourselves and actually
Yeah.
taking the good stuff. But I love that you said there, actually, I look at how far I've come and then I realize, hey, I know even more than I used to know. I'm even
Yeah.
more experienced than I used to be. But I guess what you're saying there, and this is what I want everybody that's listening to hear, it's a really conscious process. You literally have to
Yeah.
step into yourself almost and go, you need to remember. So I talk a lot about evidence files, as you'll know, Claire. I'll say to people, what's the facts? Where's the evidence? That
Mm,
works in both directions, not only to challenge the self-doubt, but to build the self-belief. And
yeah.
that's what you just described. So I absolutely love that. And you're right. Like we have got us 49-year-old ladies standing here right now. We've got so much experience under our belt. We've got so much to offer people. And I think we forget that so quickly.
Mm.
We are so well stood, if you like, to be able to give so much to so many. I just love that. Absolutely love that practical tip there as well, and real awareness of what you need to do. There are so many questions that I've got written down here. I now can't make sense of my own questions on my pad. That's a 49-year-old brain for everyone that's listening.
Hmm.
I'm like, I scribble words as you say them. So I'm like, oh, do I want to pick up on that? I was going to ask you about solo traveling, actually, because this conversation
Okay.
came up with someone recently on the podcast, and you talked about solo traveling in your youth, and I've met a lot of people in our age category that talk about traveling in their youth, but say they just would never do that now. Would you? Would you
Oh
still
my
do you?
God. In a heartbeat. Don't tell my husband, he'll go mental. But yeah. Oh my God. If I could have like a couple of weeks or just on my own, like, oh, going anywhere. I don't
Really?
care where. Don't care where. Yeah, anywhere.
And in terms of, so what is it the solo traveling gives you? I think this is a really interesting one because, again, I think women very often, I think there can be fear, and I understand, like from a practical perspective, some fear of traveling alone. But equally, a lot of women struggle to give themselves that, but also to then embrace it as an opportunity. I mean, I would struggle to solo travel. I am one of those people, and it's probably less about fear of being on my own, but actually just literally being on my own. Like I'm not a solo traveler. I think it would be good for me. Tell us more about what solo traveling gives you, why you love it so much.
Well, I mean, like I said before, I'm a bit of an introvert anyway, so I'm very happy in my own company. And I've always had this thing, probably somebody else said it, but if you're not good enough company for yourself, how can you be good enough company for anyone
Yeah,
else, right?
yeah,
So
it's
I
a
kind
great
of live
line.
by that. And I just remember how it felt when I first travelled on my own, and that just complete freedom, no restrictions on time, on your mental energy, on your physical energy, just being able to do absolutely whatever you want at any time of the day or night and go wherever you want. And when I travelled, I didn't really have much of a plan either. I had my was it the Hitchhiker's Guide? Not the Hitchhiker's Guide. There was another one, Lonely Planet. One of those two.
Lonely Planet. I love a Lonely Planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had my book. It was like this thick, and that's how I decided where I wanted to go. Maybe I had a map as well, and I might have drawn a route on a map and went around the States, travelled a little bit in India, Australia, um, and yeah, there are places that I would really love to go now. I wouldn't be staying in hostels. I wouldn't be backpacking.
No,
I wouldn't
no.
be doing any of
We've
that.
upgraded at this end too. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, I
The
wouldn't
body
be doing
can't
any of
take
that.
it.
But yeah, even now, like, I've had the opportunity to do it, and I
Love
knew
that.
that the house would still be standing and the rest of the family would
I
still
love it.
be alive. But
There's a definite theme that runs through with you, Claire, of, courage, adventure, you said earlier on. I think, I challenge you on reckless from earlier and just, just courageous. You're courageous and you show that in everything you've done. here you are now, as a result of your lived experience, you're claiming your crown, the menopause stylist. I really want to give
Mm.
the explanation. Um, if you could go back to yourself 5 years ago, pre-COVID, what advice would you give you, knowing now what was coming? Yeah, I'm just going to leave that question open. What advice would you give to yourself? What would you say to yourself 5 years ago?
That's a tough one because I feel like there's a lot that I would say to myself. I think in terms of something that would kind of have benefited me overall, my mental health, my physical health, my business journey, would to have been something really, really simple and really, really basic, and it would have been get fit, lift
Right.
weights, and get fit.
Interesting.
And two things. So that and stop trying to perfect, because I have an issue with that, and I have to tell myself to just do it messy. It doesn't have to be, just get it done. Done is better than nothing. And so that's
Okay.
that's another thing that I'm like living with on a daily basis, is done is
Okay, so that's one that still plays out now. We still have some perfectionism. All right, well, we
always.
won't go into coaching on the call, but interesting to hear. And look, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? You know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I remember hearing, I think it was an interview with Barack Obama actually, and he said the best advice is hindsight.
Mm,
And there is no way to go back, but we can learn so much from it. I'm
mm.
big fan of not dwelling at all, but always
Yeah,
what
me
can we
too.
learn?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much to be so proud of, and I know it's been a tough few years for you because I'm also lived experience of that.
Mm.
But look at where you are now, and so I guess that moment is also to say, but look at where you are, and just incredible what you've achieved. So I always wrap up on the podcast by saying, what advice would you give to anyone listening right now? Now, we've had a really broad conversation around menopause, particularly, and I love that what you are doing is, there's so many people out there that want to tell us all the things we should do around the symptoms, but you've absolutely taken what you love. You are living and breathing evidence of dress to feel good and look good because our bodies have changed and are changing so much. What would your advice be to anyone that's listening? And actually, if you've got a couple of pieces of advice because of younger generation or people that are going
Mm.
through the category we're currently going through, what would they be?
In terms of menopause, I would say educate yourself, because although you might not feel like there's much information out there, there is now. There's masses of it. Educate yourself. If you're in your 30s, early 40s, educate yourself. If you're in the middle of it, go to your GP and keep going back. Don't accept no as an
Yeah, I
answer.
hear that a lot.
And for just generally women our age who are, everything in your life changes, everything feels like it changes. You've got to take a moment to think about what you want now, because we've spent so much time serving others in whatever capacity that is, for work, family, older members of the family, younger members of the family, spouses. You have to take a moment now and just stop and tell everybody else no for a moment and think about what you need. Because I hate this, but you've probably got less time ahead of you than you've got behind you. And if you're going to make a change, do it now. Don't keep waiting for the perfect time, because it won't
Wow.
happen.
That's really powerful. Like I've literally had a feeling, and that is so powerful. You're so right. I think it makes me sad sometimes that it takes so many women to get to this point in their life to make the changes, to see the shifts, to own their crowns, to do the things that they really want to do. But better late than never. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
often say I'm not trying to create a movement of really selfish people. I'm just trying to create a movement of courageous women who are stepping up and standing up and saying, hey, look, I'm here too. And the sooner we do that, the better. You are right. I think we have got, less in front of us than behind us. Not necessarily for everyone, but it can often be the case. And life is just so precious. And it's not meant to be it's not meant to be that hard. And I know
No.
some of it is out of control, but it doesn't have to be that hard. I think that's brilliant advice, Claire. I really do. What's next for Claire, the menopause stylist? What's coming up on the radar for her?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, because talking about being courageous, a year ago I had a stand at a huge menopause event called Pause Live, which is held in October. It's the 4th of October this year at the Connaught Rooms in London. And I said to myself, and quite a few other people, I'm going to be speaking live at that event next year. And I will be. I have no experience of public speaking whatsoever. I've never done this before. But there you go. I'm speaking live at Pause Live event on the 4th of October. It's the biggest menopause
Absolutely
event in
amazing.
the UK. And I'm not even remotely nervous about it, but I probably should be.
Now then, let's just wipe off that last line. Like, you don't need to be nervous about something that is your subject. You're the expert, and I am
Hmm.
so excited for you. I know that you shared recently that this opportunity had presented itself and you were going for it. And that's the bit about being courageous. Sometimes, look, I talk a lot about learning to say yes, learning to say no. It's saying yes to the right stuff, and it's
Yeah.
embracing the opportunities, even if you're not ready. Like you just said, I'm not ready. I'm not a public speaker. But you know what? You're public speaking right now. You
Mhm.
don't have to be perfect. You
Yeah,
don't have to be
exactly.
100% ready. In fact, no one ever is. And I
No.
love that you've embraced this. So I'm so excited for you. And that's a UK event. So if you are a UK listener, we'll look at actually, I'll get Claire to give me the link. We'll put that in the show notes if that's for anyone that wants to go along and find out
Yep.
about that. Love that. Absolutely love that. So that's the most exciting thing. Anything else in terms of 2026? Have you started thinking that far forward yet?
Not at the moment, no. No, I haven't. I have introduced a 15-minute style clarity call for anyone who feels like maybe they need a little bit of help, and I'm
Brilliant.
gonna plan to continue those going forward. So that's always going to be there, but we'll see what happens at Pause Live this year, and then we'll see what direction that takes me in.
Exciting. Claire, if people want to come and find out more about you, where is the best place to find you?
Instagram, the Menopause Stylist UK, or on Facebook, Claire Causton, the Menopause Stylist, or just Google the Menopause Stylist and you'll find me.
Go check her out. She shares real, and you keep. Again, I'm going to say you keep it really real across your socials. It's
Mm,
not what I love about you, and I know you'll take this for the compliment that it's meant to be. I live in Dubai, as we all know, right? So when it comes to personal styling, it can feel very out of reach. It can on the socials. You keep it real. You give really great tips, but you also talk about the tough stuff, the feelings, as well
mm,
as it's not a bunch of perfectly polished reels making me feel like I still can't look like that. And that's what I
no.
love about your socials. I really do. It's absolutely keep it real. It's speaking to people like us, 49, 50 years old, the body's changed, and we're needing to shift and change a little bit of how we think and do. Claire, thank you so much for joining me on the She is Courageous podcast. It's absolutely brilliant to hear more of your story. You are genuinely a true example of courage all the way through, but having that curveball, that experience you've had over the last few years, I'm sure that's even had you question your own courageous nature, and yet you've still faced into it and
Yeah.
made the shift you had. So I'm excited for the next chapter for Claire. I'm delighted that you joined us, and I know this would have been a really, really useful episode for everybody listening. So thank you so much. So, any last parting words for the listeners before we press that stop record button?
I just want to say that whatever you see when you look in the mirror, nobody else sees the same thing that you see. And your body is just fine as it is. You are just fine as you are. And it's never too late to make any changes that you want to make.
That's like a mic drop moment. That's in a perfect way to end the podcast. And so I'm going to finish it with, as Claire has just said, you are more than fine just as you are. In fact, let me remind you, as we always say on the podcast, she is courageous and she is you. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.